Dan with Guardian Mold Prevent here. We're going to take a look at a home located in Homewood, Illinois. This is a house where the basement flooded, filled with water, and we're looking now at the main level of the house. You can see that mold has developed all the way up on the upstairs portion of this home, on the ceiling and on the walls. Now we're going to switch to some footage of the basement, and I have to apologize in advance because much of this is going to be very dark and maybe difficult to make out in some areas what we're looking at. But essentially this is a home that was foreclosed on. It was left empty, and unfortunately a pipe bust and the basement filled up with water. It sat that way for some time, and as you can see, much of the materials in this basement are affected with mold growth, and some of the wood framing is even rotted. But we've got drywall with mold, we've got wood paneling. No doubt that inside of the walls, especially the exterior walls, there's insulation that's covered with mold. The people who previously lived here left some of their personal belongings that are completely covered with mold. The ceiling tiles are completely covered. Some of them are down on the floor, I believe. You can see here that the stuff on the floor is covered with mold. And in general, this basement is just, what we would consider to be a complete disaster or a stage 4 mold problem. Now, we show you these videos not because we think that it's possible for your house or where you live to get a problem of this magnitude, because obviously we know that you'll catch this long before you'll catch your water issues long before we ever get to this level. But we want you to see what it looks like in some of the most extreme cases that we run into, and then also we want to make a point that even in the most extreme cases, the mold can be remediated properly. Now, when we walk into a mold project, the first thing we do is we define the materials that we have. Once we have that determined, we then can decide which direction to go and what the scope of work will entail. First thing we have is porous material, so that's like drywall, trim, insulation, fiberboard, items that are porous. And then we have semi-porous materials, so essentially wood framing falls in this category, and then your non-porous materials, which is concrete, your foundation walls, and your concrete floor. Again, once we have that defined, we can then proceed with putting together a scope of work. The first thing we do is set up containment in the area. Now, in this house, I don't know that containment will be necessary because all levels are affected, but if it was just your basement that was affected or just your attic, we would set up a containment barrier to make sure that we're not cross-contaminating the rest of the living space. We then install air scrubbers or negative air machines to run all the air through HEPA filtration, and we take the materials that we have determined are porous. So again, your drywall, trim, insulation, those items are all physically removed, bagged, discarded, and taken off the property. We then treat your semi-porous and your non-porous materials with both a biocide and then a white acrylic-based mold-resistant coating. Now you're going to notice here that all the surfaces in this basement, in terms of the walls and the framing, are all fresh, clean. They've all been scrubbed down completely. They've all been treated with a biocide in order to kill all the mold that was present, and they were all treated with a white acrylic-based mold-resistant coating. Again, while we performed this project, we ran our air equipment. We also ran that equipment for a couple days after the project was completed, just to ensure that we were removing all of the mold spores that were in the air. And again, this is just to help you understand that you may have a mold problem in your house, and it certainly will not be to this magnitude, but we want you to understand that in most cases, mold problems can be remediated properly, and we can get your living space back into an acceptable area to live in, and we can get the air quality under control. Now, one thing that I'll show you quickly is an air scrubber or negative air equipment. This machine can be utilized freestanding as it's shown in this picture, or we can attach hoses to either the intake or the exhaust and create negative air pressure. But this machine is meant to pull spores from the air and leave you with clean air in your living space. This is something that a mold remediation firm would do. Joe Contractor may come in and tell you that at a very low rate he can take care of your mold problem, but you have to ask yourself, what will the air quality be like when he's finished?